Now today we are going to talk about a very interesting place. It's called Svalbard.
That in Svalbard, there's a law that by law you can't give birth and you can't die.
But it seems like the population here actually likes the night more. Is that true, and why is that?
But they said it never gets really completely pitch black. It's always this dark blue. So you could be sitting in your room and seeing the northern lights, or you could be sitting in your room comfortably and seeing the midnight sun, and that's exactly what we did.
Final thing, what's the James Bond connection?
When we went to this area, they have a global seed vault out there, and it looks straight out of a James Bond movie for the future generation to protect everybody and to protect everything. They have the duplicate seeds of more than some 12 lakh seeds from all across the world.
So, let's go in.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Travel Explore Celebrate Life. Now today we are going to talk about a very interesting place. It's called Svalbard. Now in our quest to go find new destinations, newer experiences, places and things where you will truly celebrate life, we decided to do an episode on Svalbard mainly because Sunila just returned from there. So apart from telling you what it is about, let me just pass it on to Sunila because Sunila, I think you will be able to tell us better about it. So what is Svalbard, or where is Svalbard?
So Neil, even before we get to where is Svalbard, I think I'd like to start this episode with a quirky fact.
Okay.
And that is that in Svalbard, there's a law that by law you can't give birth and you can't die.
So by law you can't give birth and you can't die.
By law you can't be born in Svalbard and you can't even die out there. And it sounds really strange, but there's a lot of logic behind it.
So give us the logic.
Yeah, and I think to understand that, you go back to your earlier point of where really is Svalbard.
Okay.
Right, the location, because once that is clear, then everything becomes clear. So Svalbard is the archipelago of islands way up north. And when I mean way up north, we are talking even above Greenland, like imagine the northernmost inhabited territory of Greenland, and go even above that, and that is where you'll find Svalbard. So it's, I think, around 78 degrees latitude. So that's just 1,300 kilometers from the North Pole. And in Svalbard, there is Spitsbergen, which is the biggest island. And in Spitsbergen, there is Longyearbyen, which is considered the northernmost city of the world. So, and the northernmost commercial airport. So I had the privilege of landing into the northernmost commercial airport of the world and visiting the northernmost city of the world.
So now you've been to Antarctica also, which means you've done the northernmost and the southernmost cities in the world. Well, the southernmost city, that is Ushuaia, it always fights with a city or town in Chile where they try to figure out which is the southernmost city in the world. But now you've done that. So going to the northernmost city, northernmost commercial or civilian airport, what was that experience like?
It was really amazing. I think I have not seen a site like this, because when I went to Antarctica, we go to Ushuaia or Chile, and then you take the cruise and you go. And even with the flights that land into Antarctica, you don't really land into Antarctica, right?
Correct.
You land a little above on the peninsula, and then you have to take the cruise to go ahead. What was amazing here was you have to go via Norway. So Svalbard is a part of Norway, but it is an autonomous region.
Okay.
So you have to cross immigration, and I went to Tromsø, and from Tromsø we crossed the immigration, and then we were in international land. And one tip here, which I was given by the person from Visit Svalbard, so thank you to her, when I went for the workshop, which we discussed last time, is that when you're traveling to Svalbard, try and sit on the right side window.
Okay.
So that is row F. And when you're in the right side window, of course, the view is amazing from wherever you're seated. But when you're in this F row and you're looking out of the window, you can't just, you are just mesmerized. So a few of our friends were actually sleeping, and we went and woke up the whole plane that you can't sleep, look out, because all you see is thick sheets of ice and mountains of snow. For like till the ice can, reach or take you, all you see is this white blanketed mountains, and it's really stunning. So when you land in there, you're landing into snow. It just feels like this big white winter wonderland forever. And the sun was shining because we went in this period which we call spring,
Okay.
but that's known as sunny winter out there.
Okay.
So that was the sunny winter time we landed, and then you have these white mountains right there. The airport's pretty small, but actually bigger than some of the airports in Norway. So we mentioned Lofoten Islands,
Yeah, of
and
course.
Svalbard is the airport there. It had just one baggage belt, but this actually is pretty much bigger. Okay, so it was really nice to land in there. And as soon as you land, you come out and you see this mountain of snow and this blue fjord and the waters out there. So it's really stunning. And the first thing that greets you is this sign of the polar bear with directions to where things are. So it's quite special.
So, we have a trip north where we are saying the Polar Bear Express is
Yes,
what some
yes.
of our travelers are going to do. So they'll also be going to this place.
Yes, Neil. So all the 27 guests who are booked to go to the Arctic cruise, they will be landing into Longyearbyen. What we've done for them to make the journey really easy is they will be on a chartered flight. So from Oslo, they will take a chartered flight to Longyearbyen and go straight off to their cruise. So they will be landing on the
And then they
northernmost
will have a
airport.
chance to see the polar bear.
I hope so. I'm wishing and hoping that they get a chance because when they're going, it's already summer.
Yeah.
So in the high Arctic, the Arctic area where Svalbard is, there are 3 seasons. So just now what we went, the springtime is known as the sunny winter. Then you move into a polar summer, and then you move into winter, which is the northern lights season. So basically you can say there are 3 seasons out there. When our tourists, our guests will be going, it will be the summertime, and that's when the ice in the fjords melts. The cruise can go a little deeper into the fjord. So when you're going there, and when you're out there on a cruise for 5-6 days, it just makes it so much easier to spot, and you'll be in the zodiac raft, and just like Antarctica. So it's an
Yeah.
expedition vessel, it's an icebreaker. In fact, it is the same vessel that is in Antarctica.
Oh, so it just goes back up
Correct.
north
So
after.
when it's summer there and winter down there, the same vessel goes up north. Then you get on the vessel, pretty much the same things. And then you have these zodiac rafts into which you would get off and do some excursions. You can even have some landings, some sightings. And, that's the time that the bears would be with their cubs. So hopefully they would definitely have a better chance at seeing
Fingers
the polar bear.
crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Well, now after this long 5-minute discussion, let's come back to the main question.
Yes.
Why can't someone be born or die in Svalbard? And what happens if you die in Svalbard?
Okay, so it's connected to our earlier point, which is the polar bears. There are about 3,000 polar bears in this area.
Okay.
How many people do you think there are there in Svalbard, Neil?
Now that you've asked this question, I'm sure it's less than the
Yes,
polar
so
bears.
it's
then.
around 2,500 is the population.
Okay.
And you have 3,000 polar bears. Okay, so there is really a good chance that you will see there.
So
Now,
a bit like New Zealand, right? More sheep than people is
something like that, but still more people in New
Yeah.
Zealand. In Svalbard and Longyearbyen, it's really sparse. Like I think the building complex where I live, there are more than 3,000 people out there. So it's amazing to think that in this big land there are only 2,500. But all these people are mostly people who've come from all around the world to work here.
Okay.
So when you have such a small community, obviously the facilities are really limited, and the weather makes it impossible to have like a full-blown big hospital out there. So for the simple fact that the facilities are limited, they say that you can't be born in Svalbard. Of course, they have a hospital if something happens, but typically before the delivery, they would ask the mothers to go back to mainland Norway, give birth, and then come back. So there was this funny story, and the guide was telling us that in pandemic we had this baby boom, right? Everyone was at home and no television, nothing. So about 100 kids were born, and they didn't know what to do with them because there's no kindergarten to look after them. So that's the reason that you can't be born there. And to die actually is a very scientific reason. So, like when you die, you would probably be buried in the ground. And the weather condition there, the ice is so thick, so there's permafrost, which kind of preserves everything. So say you die of a disease, when you're dying, even the bacteria and the viruses with you will live much longer. So say the ice goes low and these bacteria and viruses are released back in the air, we can all get sick, whoever's living in Svalbard.
Oh, yeah.
So they say that, guys, don't die here. Like go back to the mainland and that's where all the things will happen. And I think I saw that because I saw a much younger crowd everywhere that I went in Svalbard, So very, very few people are native to the region.
Yeah.
Mostly, I met people from Brazil, I met people from Thailand, Philippines, even to Indian chefs, Belgium, Europe, London, all over. So it's this amazing melting pot of cultures that you see there.
I quite agree. Like, it's better that you move to mainland and then come back over here. Now, in our conversation, when we were talking about your trip, you mentioned many unique things. Similar to our culture, they, I think, have a habit of removing shoes everywhere.
Yeah.
Wherever you go, you're removing your shoes and walking inside.
Right.
Now, in a Western culture, that probably doesn't exist. Like, you sometimes go to someone's house in Europe and they'll be like, don't take your shoes off. And here we are just worried, right? Like, will we stain your carpets? Will we stain something else? But why is Svalbard so different?
Right, Neil. So when we talk of Svalbard, I think we have to always keep in mind that it's a very special place. I kept reminding myself of the location that I'm so close to the North Pole. I'm just 1,300 kilometers. The people there are from all around the world. So it's like a mini world in its own way, right? So it's not European, it's not Asian, it's a good mixing culture. And why did the first people come here? So there was an American who came in there, and then the others came in, because the land was so rich with natural elements, and they started mining. And the coal mines are still, there is still one last coal mine which is still active, which they will stop by next year. So then there won't be any more coal mines. So when everyone started coming for the coal mining, there was a lot of coal dust and the shoes would get spoiled, right? So whenever they entered, it was a lot of effort to again clean everything. So the habit developed, and I really like that habit. I think it was amazing because it's so nice. Every hotel you go, or say you go to a pub, they would have like this wardrobe space, and they would have racks, and they had shoes kept there, like very comfortable slippers, like, and then you come in and you wear these nice comfortable slippers, and then you're walking around in the hotel. So it was like, initially you're like, we'll have to remove our shoes. But even when we did a hotel inspection and we had our dinner at Funken Lodge, we went in, removed our shoes, wore these comfy slippers, and then it felt like home. So you're at home everywhere you go.
You mentioned something called a Funken Lodge.
Yes.
What is that?
I was honestly surprised at the kind of accommodation options you have here, right? I expected nothing. Like, I thought it's going to be absolute basics, given where we are. But it was very surprising, very pleasantly surprised to see that there is a good mix of accommodation options here. So we did hear that Tom Cruise was actually staying at Funken Lodge just before we went there, and he was there for a month. So I think the last Mission Impossible movie, or the next one to come out, is probably being filmed out there. So
this is a habit, right, of yours. So you were in Saudi Arabia. There was Kanye West staying at the same place.
Yes.
Tom Cruise was staying just
I
before
follow
that.
the stars without knowing it.
But never meet them, right?
Never meet
if
them.
You ever,
Maybe
if you ever
someday.
do meet them, remember, Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life needs more guests. So
why
think
not?
about
Maybe
that.
we'll do one episode right there and then, right? Might get them as a guest. That would be nice.
Funken Lodge.
So coming back to Funken Lodge. So Hurtigruten is a company. We know that it does cruises across, Norway in the north, and also to Antarctica. Hurtigruten also runs a few hotels, and I did happen to stay at the Radisson Polo Hotel. It was an amazing property. Really nice breakfast and dining room. And it has this whole glass facade, so you could be sitting in your room and seeing the northern lights, or you could be sitting in your room comfortably and seeing the midnight sun, and that's exactly what we did. That is Radisson Hotel. Then Funken Lodge is a little more upmarket, very comfortable, very cozy, and it has this amazing restaurant. Like, I had one of my best meals out there.
Why was it so amazing?
The food was so fresh. Like, if you ever go there, you must try the king crabs. That is a specialty out there. We were actually served this very fancy, fine dining 3-course meal. We spent half our time in taking photos because everything looked amazing. And the view. Like, we didn't know whether to look at the food or keep looking out because the view was so amazing. So the resort is really nice, very special. And for the little, if you're on a budget, they also have an option of a coal miner's cabin. So all the coal miners, when they started coming in, housing was built for all of them. what do you do with the housing but turn it into a hotel? But they have some shared facilities, like the bathrooms would be shared out there. But you can bring your price down. And the coal miners cabin, in fact, we went there for lunch and they had the most amazing burgers that you could ever taste. So one thing that completely surprised me was the kind of meals I had in Svalbard.
Okay.
Because the last thing I expected was to have so much variety, have so much good food, and have so much of fine dining options out there. So it was really quite nice.
And
So the
after
Funken Lodge, Coal Miners, Radisson, and there are other hotels. So these are not the only 3, 4 hotels, but everything is walking distance, so you can get around really easily.
And after a long time, you went to a country where you didn't come back saying that, oh, I've done one more country, right? Because you've
Yes.
been there before.
Yeah.
And of course, it's an
Yeah,
autonomous
yeah,
region, but
yeah.
it's okay, like, one more country. But
Yeah.
now you told me something where, these places have 6 months of day and 6 months of night, right? And often everyone is longing for the sun.
Right.
But it seems like the population here actually likes the night more. Is that true, and why is that?
Well, at least the people I spoke to seemed to. Even I was very surprised because we were waiting. I mean, we went in the sunny winter. So this is like a transition phase, right?
Yeah.
And you had like, if we would have reached there 2, 3 weeks before, we would have got the northern lights. But we reached there during the sunny winter. But one thing special that I experienced there was the last sunset of the year. Like it was the last sunset of the year. The sun is not going to set now. And I actually took a, screenshot of the weather because it shows you the sunset times. And it said sunset today, some 11:50 or 12, and sunrise at 1:30. So like for 1 hour is what was the night. And then from tomorrow, sun all day, all day, all day, all day, all day. So that is really how it was. So it was pretty, strange and quite exciting. So I thought it would be great to have the sun all day. Your days are long.
Yeah.
You can do a lot. But I experienced what the locals were saying. So by like the second, third day, we said, why are we so tired? I'm so exhausted. Like the light is nice, the heating is good. And then we looked at the watch and we said, it is 12 o'clock, like it's midnight.
Yeah.
But if you look out, there was so much sun. And then we realized we had been up from 5 o'clock because the light wakes you up.
Yeah.
And then you're tired all day. Like you're just at it. So it's like a mind-body disconnect. And the body keeps going. Or rather the mind keeps going, but the body is tired and you don't realize that. So I happened to speak to a lot of locals and everyone said we prefer the polar night. And I said, why would you want like darkness all day? And they said it's impossible to sleep when the sun is there. Of course, we get a lot of work done. We work more. But it's just impossible to sleep. So, Neil, what they're doing right now is actually putting up these foils on their windows. They are adding the the blackout curtains so that at least they will get some sleep.
Yeah.
So they seem to like the polar night more. And one thing I have to experience still the polar night. I don't know if you have, but they said it never gets really completely pitch black.
Yeah.
It's always this dark blue, and you have to experience it apparently because it's a very beautiful blue and it's stunning. So they all seem to like the night more than the day. I don't think that goes for everyone, but majority seem to like the
No, I
night.
think you're right, because if there is sunlight outside, your brain is like programmed to like stay up, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're working a night
Yeah.
shift somewhere.
Yeah.
On our other podcast, we once spoke about the first sunrise in the world, the last sunset in the world, and all of that
Yeah.
on a particular day. But this is a new bucket list item that you want to see the last sunset,
Sunset.
for
Yeah.
the year. That's pretty cool. There was
And
some
you would want to see the first sunrise as well, right?
Yeah.
So what happens in Longyearbyen is they have the northernmost church in the world, like everything northernmost in the world is out there. So right in front, and the church was actually really nice. So we went in there, of course, as usual. We got used to it. We removed our shoes, we went in, and it has this very nice lounge area. So it's really
Yeah.
more like a meeting place. There's free tea and coffee for everyone, so you enjoy all of that. And in front of the church, they've kept steps. And on those steps, in the first week of March, is when the sun's rays first hit the town after 4 months of darkness. So after 4 months of darkness, the sun's rays first come to the town out there, and then the whole town celebrates. So I think it's called Solfestuka, and that's when the whole town comes together and celebrates the return of the sun. So it's really, I think it's a bucket list item to be able to see the first sunrise, the first last sunset. Yeah, that's quite special.
And because it is 78 degrees latitude,
Yeah.
it also would mean that the ecological balance would continue shifting. So,
Yeah.
is there a lot of like flora and fauna or animals or birds that you see migrating from one place to another?
You do see the migration, like there are whales, there are, species that only live there. So, of course, the polar bears, they go into hibernation, they come out. So we went on a cruise, and but it was a 1 day cruise because I was there just for 3 nights. So we took this cruise out into the fjords to, take our chance at the polar bear sighting.
Yeah.
And apparently, well, 2 weeks back is what they sighted, a polar bear and a cub is what they said. Well, I hope so. But he said, like, now is the time when the ice starts melting and the bears and the other animals start coming out for food, is when you start seeing more wildlife sightings. But I did see a walrus and its baby,
Okay.
and it had tuskers, and they were playing, and it was just amazing. It's really funny, but like, unless you have one of your big cameras with the lenses, if you just take it with your phone, it looks like a potato lying on this big ice sheet. It's quite funny. But the walrus, it was amazing to see it up so close. We saw seals. And then when the ship moved in, it's an icebreaker. Even for a day trip,
Yeah.
it's an icebreaker. You can't go otherwise. And when we moved in, we saw an Arctic fox.
Okay.
And I managed to get a small little video clip of the Arctic fox running away. It's all white and so pretty, and if you're not paying attention, you miss it. So when you're out on the cruise, one thing I would say is, don't just sit inside. Like, typically what happens is, we tend to say, so it's cold outside, let me sit in and be warm.
Yeah.
But I would say avoid that. Have good layers. We've always spoken of dressing in these areas. So have your warm layers and stay out and be a little alert. Like, have your coffee, tea, or whatever else it is you want to keep you warm, and stay out there and keep looking out. So I saw the Arctic fox. We saw the walrus and seal. I also saw some reindeers in the distance. This was, of course, on land. And then moving towards summer, you will see a lot more.
Yeah.
So when our cruise goes in, when the Veena Arctic Polar Bear Express cruise will go in, they have a chance to see a lot more. So the bird life returns. It's literally like watching nature change from one season to other. The animal life, the wildlife, the bird life, everything comes back. So puffins, then the Arctic tern. We spoke about it.
Yeah.
It flies from the Arctic to Antarctica and back. You have a chance to see that. You have a chance to see a whole lot of birds, a whole lot of wildlife, and a whole lot of animals, whales, and so many other things. So just dress warm and go out there on the cruise. Don't stay in, is what I'd say.
So, now that we've spoken about what you can see, let's come to what you can eat.
Yes.
What can you eat in Svalbard? You spoke about the food at the start
Yeah.
of the episode, but what are some of the things, like top three, if you want to tell us, three things that are very unique that you can have in Svalbard?
In Svalbard, you want to give you my top three?
Yeah, okay.
The first top thing I would say is Thai food.
Or what?
Yes. So after like 10 days of bland European food, it was
Walking
nice.
around with a Tabasco sauce in
Walking
your
around
purse,
with
yeah?
a Tabasco sauce and some pepper. I like European food, but after 4 or 5 days, you need some spice in life. So when we reached Svalbard, we said, okay, 2 more days. And it's funny, in fact, one of us remarked that, okay, I'm just mentally prepared, cold food for the next 3 days. I'm okay. I have my whatever little Indian
Yeah.
food packet, and
Yeah.
I'll be fine. And then we were walking and we saw this Thai restaurant, and we were looking up on Google, and we said, what? A Thai restaurant? But there are more than 100 Thai people out there working in Svalbard, and Filipinos. So don't be surprised to see Asian food. And then the bird's eye chilies and the spice came out, and we were really some happy souls out there. So the Thai restaurant was really quite nice, and quite tasty as well. So you
I
can
think
actually
whatever
eat
we spoke
anything.
for the last 20 minutes, the fact that there's a Thai restaurant there has convinced me to go to Svalbard more than anything. Okay, so that was Thai food. Then,
Yes, Thai food. I mentioned the bars and the pubs to you, so you can have pizzas, you can have burgers, and I would really recommend the gastropub at Radisson Polo Hotel. It has some of the most amazing pizzas. Like, Italian pizzas and even burgers and stuff. So that is really good. The coal miners' cabins had some excellent burgers. So again, that's something you should try.
But all this is for the initiated. I'm looking
Yes.
for food for the uninitiated who really want to experiment.
Okay, then in that case is something we didn't get to try because it was closed. But there is a restaurant called Huset.
Okay.
And at Huset, you can have a nice wine pairing. Now, I was completely blown away because Huset has a wine cellar that holds up to 10,000 wines. And
Okay,
it
that's
had some
amazing.
of the best wines of the year. They've won awards for that. They have a very special chef out there who's, I think, coming from Italy right now. And you can expect to taste
Reindeer. Yeah, now we are
and a
talking.
bird called ptarmigan,
Okay.
which is a specialty which you get to eat only there. So those are the kind of things that you can have. They have a special Saturday steak, and they are quite popular for that. They have like 17, 18 course tasting menus.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually go for a food menu and a food tasting and wine pairing at Huset. So yeah, you have it.
Okay,
You
that's
can go
that's
out there.
that's pretty good.
I've
Now,
never had a seal. I've had reindeer, but no seal.
I mean,
Yeah.
our food list always
Yeah, it
continues
goes on
increasing,
increasing.
right? But
Yeah.
these are three things that one could definitely have.
And something that you should definitely try in Svalbard and all of Norway, but especially in Svalbard, is called Aquavit.
Aquavit.
Wheat.
Okay.
Okay, and it's Aquavit, as in the water of life, is what they call it.
Uh-huh.
But it's kind of in like a gin, but not a gin. Stronger than a gin, less stronger than a whiskey, and it's made of potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And dill and caraway. So we were joking. We said this is nothing but jeera aloo, at
Yeah,
the end of
huh.
it, like right. It's made from potatoes. So amazing taste, and they have some that are actually made in Svalbard as well.
Okay.
But you can taste it, and it's very warming. So if you're like you say, you're not well, have Dr. Brandy is what we were told when we
Yeah.
were young. Similarly, you can have an aquavit and go out on the cruise. No problem. Like the wind and the weather doesn't bother you at all. So that's something that you should try. And Svalbard has their own brewery.
Okay.
So when you land from the airport, one of the first things you see is a brewery, and it just confuses you. Like
Yeah.
I am near the North Pole. What is this doing here? But yeah, there you have all of that. So I thought we should just complete
No,
that
no, no.
angle
That
before we
that
move
makes
on.
sense because food
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
cannot be food only. Food and drink comes in together. Final question. What were the activities like? Like adventure activities
I think
or
we spoke
whatever?
for half an hour, but we
Yeah,
didn't speak of what
we
to
haven't
do
touched
there.
on
Right?
that, right?
So the activities kind of change with the seasons. Depends on when you want to go. The two main attractions, of course, are the Midnight Sun and the Northern Lights. And depending on when you go, the activities will change. Now, some of the common things are the dog sled rides, and it's really cute whenever you go towards a hotel or something. Just like the car park, next to the car park is a dog park.
Okay.
And they have these little, wooden pillars put up, and you can go and tie your dog out there if the dogs are not allowed in, so something. There was actually a husky cafe, and I
Okay.
went in, and you can spend time with the husky dogs there.
Oh,
So we had a
wow.
cappuccino with the huskies sitting next to you. It's really special, and you see a lot of huskies. Like you start thinking after some time that it's very normal to just see huskies all around you. This is the only dog that you
Yeah.
would see. So that is one thing. So of course you can have husky dog sledding. You can ride your own husky dogs, the sled. I did snowmobiling, so I was quite happy.
Okay.
It felt like living my James Bond moment, as I call it. So there
There
is
is a James Bond connection, right?
Yes,
Huh.
yes, there is. We'll come to that. So with the snowmobiles, you can go off on a safari. And that's when I saw the reindeers, and I also saw a glacier really up close. We actually had a picnic on a glacier. We sat down and had a bit of coffee, and there's this warm berry drink that they give you there. It's quite nice. Like it's non-alcoholic, it's just a berry drink, but quite special. So if you're within the limits where the polar bear signs start, you're safe. So you
Yeah.
can go off, and you have instructors and everything. So it's really quite cool. So you can do hiking, you can go ice caving. So they have these beautiful ice caves, natural caves, and then you can go down and walk there. Of course, if you have mobility issues, avoid that and do something else. They also have something called a wilderness camp. So you can go off into the Arctic wilderness and experience that. So sit there and then have warm food and things in a camp, hear stories. The fjord cruise I already mentioned to you, that is again something you can do. And then you have the coal mines, so you can of course go in and visit a coal mine and be there. Come summer, lot more water activities
Yeah.
will be there. So you can take more cruises, you can go kayaking, you can do all these other water-based sports. So things to do are a lot. You could stay there a week and still find enough things to do, but I would say at least 2-3 nights is what you should spend. And when you're in the summer, you're doing it with the midnight sun. When you're in winter, you're doing it with the northern lights. So you win anyways. So there's a lot to do out there.
All
There's
right.
a lot of things.
Final thing. What's the James Bond connection?
Okay, so Die Another Day, I think, has a car chase that
Yeah.
was shot in Iceland,
Okay.
and a part of it was shot in Svalbard. So that is a connection. And then when we went to this area, they have a global seed vault out there.
Okay.
And it looks straight out of a James Bond movie. So I'm not sure if it was in any of the James Bond movies, but the guide kept saying which. I couldn't find which one, but it really looks like it's out of a James Bond movie. And even the thought is like that, right? All these James Bond movies are obsessed with doomsday and all of that. So what they've done in the global seed vault is for the future generation, to protect everybody and to protect everything. They have the genes, the seed, like they have the duplicate seeds of more than some 12 lakh seeds from all across the world. And these are stored. And because of the permafrost, the seeds will stay viable for a very long time, very, very, very long time. So should something happen to humanity, the next generation will always have food to go on. And I thought the thought itself was nice. And all the countries have collaborated to do it. So, in Svalbard, I felt that a lot, that everyone's coming together to do things. It was really quite special. So, but yeah, the James Bond connection is there. In fact, a lot of other movies are also shot in Svalbard. And now I'm waiting to see the new Tom Cruise movie, and we'll know where he's been and
I
what
think
he has been doing.
on that cinema angle, it's probably apt to close this episode. So thank you so much for giving us a deep dive into Svalbard, the autonomous region, but something that should be on everyone's bucket list. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. Thank you for tuning in to Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. We will see you next week.